How are your kids doing? Good?
Yeah, kids are great. School just ended. What a crazy year.
Did they do the online stuff? Like they weren't actually going to school, were they?
No,
No.
not since geez, sometime in March, I think. So
Wow.
that was a lot of work. The little one, she'll be 3, so no school for her. But for my 8-year-old, who's in third grade, yeah, I mean, just crazy.
The little one, 3. I remember when when your wife gave birth. I remember seeing you at the New York Pro, and she was, pregnant, and that. So, it's like Larry David says from Curb Your Enthusiasm. Time flies when you're having fun, and even when you're not. Time. But I want to thank you for doing this, man. We'll get a lot of people on here, and hey, the animal meal is really good, and I want to talk about that too, because that you've got really good ideas and the premise behind it itself, and I've always liked that. You're really big on whole. The first thing, and one of the things I also like, and we're going to start in 1 second. I'd ask when I was working with you, I would ask you, or I would send you photos, and you would always turn it around, or even about the food, and you'd say, well, what do you think? And I think that's a matter of self-awareness, and I don't think a lot of people do that. They just give information and they push. I mean, do you find that, or?
Yeah, I mean, I had a similar experience like what you just mentioned that you say you received from me back in 2009 when I worked with Oscar Ardon for the New York Pro. That's what I experienced with him, and he was different from coaches that I had worked with up until that point, because when we would get to a point, I would say, Oscar, what do you think the next step should be? A lot of times he would go, I don't know, what do you think it should be? And I would say, oh, well, maybe this and then that, and he would usually say, that sounds like a good idea. Let's do that. And we would do it, and it would work. So it's such a great gift to allow someone, it sounds like it shouldn't be a big deal, allowing someone to kind of participate in their own.
I think it's important because it's an exchange. But let me introduce. Hi, everybody. Hi, Betty. Hey, James Golden. What's up, my friend Steve Umberger, Tony Corvey. How's that new golf academy going, Tony? We got Lance Stranahan here. His father was the British Open champion. So Lance, my friend Lance, Evan, Lance Stranahan, his father was the guy who introduced weightlifting to the PGA back in the 40s or 50s. So he had
cool.
He used to carry his weights around, and the hotels would make him do it outside because they didn't know what the hell, But his father was like a pioneer, and Lance went to school with Arnold Palmer and Jack Nicklaus's kids. So, and Lance is one of us. He's also competed. But everybody, I have probably our most in-demand guest on the podcast. I think we're on episode number 32 now. We've had some really, really good people. It's all about longevity and being able to do this for a lifetime. Evan Centopani is probably our youngest guest, and I don't even like using those types of descriptors because, we look at biological age and chronological age and all that, but he still has a lot to offer because I myself learned a ton from him, and I'm just going to talk as I always do for a little bit at the beginning here, then we'll let him do the talking. But you guys all know me. I've been in it since the 70s, a long, long, long time, and I got injured few years back, and I got really out of shape, and I was going back to Powerhouse, and we all know Evan. He's from Connecticut, probably easily the best bodybuilder to ever come out of Connecticut. He's one of the top IFBB pros today, but there's a lot more to him, which we'll talk about. But I knew Evan, and we'd always say hello, but I would espy him, and I would watch what he would do with people in the gym. Because I don't just necessarily plug myself into a name or because a person assumes a certain position or something like that. And I would watch what he would do with people, and he would get results, and he was unrelenting, and he was very, very active with the people. And so I ended up working with him, and there's some funny things that happen. In fact, I after working with him for a while, I turned to him one day and I says, I've been doing everything wrong for 4 decades. And he was very diplomatic, and he said, well, let's just say you're going to do them a little differently now. So, but there's many different ways to do things. In fact, as you get older, your body's going to change, and the way your body receives things is going to change. So you're probably going to have to adapt and adopt new things. And he also talks about adaptation and doing probably the hardest exercises, no matter what status of health you're in, as long as you're not harmful to yourself. This is all about progress over time and aging without getting old, and keeping those telomeres in your body as lengthy as possible so you don't experience cell death. And that's a little complicated, but most of us here understand that. And Evan is really, really good at that. He's big. He's very, hi, Betty. Thank you also, because you're always here and you have great, and thank you for helping all the animals like you do, Betty, because that's a really great thing. But getting back to Evan, he's really, really big into nutrition, and not just getting the right macronutrients together. He's all about absorption and health. Making sure what you're doing is having a positive effect and not just following some cookie cutter script. And you'll do yourself well to follow his podcast, Evan's World. He has some really, really good videos on there, cooking videos, and really not complicated where you can't understand it, but very detailed with things that you probably wouldn't consider that you can put in your arsenal, your eating arsenal, to make yourself better. He did suffer an injury a couple of years ago to his leg, a very bad. Most orthopedists would tell you you're done with your sport. That was a quadricep tendon injury, right, Evan? You stepped pretty much innocuously. He got out of his car, just stepped the wrong way on ice. His leg went out, and he tore it, separating the muscles from the insertion. Surgery ensued right away. And it's one of those injuries you hear from doctors all the time. I know this because I am one. You'll never do X, Y, Z again. And I can tell you almost always, most people can come back and do these things again, but you've got to have strategy, and he did. So I'll let him talk about that as far as healing himself. He's going to talk about a lot of good things. Your questions, of course. Hey, Tony, how are you, my man? Tony says, hello, Evan. He was waiting for this. You better have some questions, Tony. Tony had a really bad heart incident and a stroke, so he's a little bit impaired now, but he's on the comeback trail, and he's back to teaching golf. He's a golf pro, Evan. He's a really good guy, interesting guy. He's worked with a lot of high-level people. It's a little bit of rambling, but here's Evan. And hey, Evan, thanks, man. Thanks for coming on the podcast. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Mike.
And Evan's a family man. He has 2 little kids. Despite the lockdown, whatever you want to call it, what did he do? He went out. You watch his podcast. He goes to some type of metal company, or I don't know what it is, and he buys steel and implements, and he welds together power rack. He's got benches. He's basically sitting in his gym right now, and he's able to maintain a world-class physique at home. Hi, Chris. How are you? Evan is looking massive. You got to see him in person. The pictures, the celluloid, Chris, does you no good unless you see the man in the flesh. You got to come down and meet him sometime. But so you've done all these things. So Evan, just tell us how you started. We'll start like that, because everybody wants to know. You're in your 30s. You're still a young man, still in your prime. But you started. You're from Connecticut. So what happened? You were in your.
So, unlike a lot of bodybuilders who start off, maybe they're athletes, they play football and they kind of transition from something like that, or, they start out skinny and they're looking to add muscle. That was not my experience. That was not my scenario. I was actually really, really heavy growing up. And like, to give you an idea, by the time I was in 7th grade, I was 225 pounds, and a very strong kid, but certainly carrying a lot of fat, and, never really comfortable with my body. It was a pool party, you go to the beach, don't want to take your shirt off, just embarrassed, by my body.
Evan, is that about 13 years old at that point, 7th grade, 12 or 13?
I think so. I think so.
Okay.
And I reached a point, it was going into high school, and a friend of mine talked me into going out for freshman football, and I did it, and I went through all the spring and summer training, and, honestly, I fell in love with training. I was a kid, I couldn't run a mile in gym class or any of that stuff, and all the drilling and all that stuff, I loved it. And over that summer, I started losing weight, and I was riding my bike a lot. And I just started, I said, I got to start running. So I worked my way up to running a half a mile, then 2, 3, 4, 5. And I was running 6 miles a day. going into my sophomore year of high school. And obviously, looking back in hindsight, I had no clue what I was doing nutritionally, and I pretty much just starved myself. But it was enough to make me drop 70 pounds in the course of a year. And for the first time in my life, I was at least semi-comfortable, within my own skin and not really ashamed of my body anymore.
I remember you told me a story. Your father was working somewhere and you'd go there to help him, and there's some weights in the basement and you throw them around. Something to that effect. I remember you were telling me that a while. But was your father supportive? You know the old. You're pretty young. So you didn't experience back in the day. If you lifted, it was weird. But did he support your efforts?
Yeah. My uncle had some weights in his basement, so I would I'd ride my bicycle over there, use his weights, and after about a year of doing that, I think my dad realized I was committed to it. So he got me a weight set of my own, and then I could train at home in my own basement, which I did every day after school for like 3 hours, not knowing really what the hell I was doing, but just training and training and training. But how it is in the beginning, no matter what you do, it's enough to progress. So, by the time I graduated high school, I was down to 155 pounds. Beginning of my sophomore year of high school. And once I started lifting weights, and in the beginning, I was very scared to eat. I didn't want to get fat again. So, here I am, I'm lifting weights. I'm still trying to run. I'm not really eating enough, and I'm kind of making progress, but kind of not. And my dad's telling me, look, if you want to make progress with the weights, you got to eat. And I'm just still too terrified to eat. But finally, once I started eating more, my body just took off. And I ended up graduating high school at, 2.25. I had an 18-inch arm, and I could, curl 70-pound dumbbells. So,
wow. Evan, you mentioned your uncle, and we haven't really talked much about this, but your uncle was pro wrestler Tony Roma, correct?
Paul Roma, but the uncle that my father has two brothers. So when I talk about using his weight set, I'm actually referring to his other brother named John.
Okay.
But yeah, Paul Roma is one of my father's other brothers.
Did he influence you at all with training or physicality or anything like that?
Well, growing up, we would watch him sometimes, back when there was the WWF, and seeing all those guys, and plus growing up in the 80s, things were really different. The cartoons, He-Man, Thundercats, everybody was hyper muscular, and muscle was cool. So as a boy growing up in the 80s, I would have liked nothing more than to have big muscles and be strong. And, there was Arnold, in the movies, and seeing Predator and seeing Commando and seeing Conan and all that stuff. So muscle was just so big. And so, yeah, between that, the WWF, yeah, I would say I was heavily influenced by all that.
Evan, would you say muscle is falling out of favor now?
Yeah. I think masculinity in general is falling out of favor. Someone might argue me and say, no, it's not that masculinity is falling out of favor. It's, quote, toxic masculinity that's falling out of favor. But, my opinion on it, and of course I'm not a expert, but I think men and women have inherent differences. We certainly share plenty of similarities. And although I don't, I think that both men and women can do a number of tasks well, things that might be generally considered male or some things that might be generally considered female. I don't think there's anything wrong with, whoever is able to do the job best, I think should do the job. That said, as a man, I don't feel the need to prove myself. Say, for example, there's a role that's a traditionally female held role. I don't feel the need to try to prove myself good enough to do it just for the sake of it. So, if I'm compelled to do, like, hey, I recently learned how to sew. I've always wanted to know how to sew, right? So it's not like I avoid it because I say, well, that's a female thing, so I'm not comfortable enough with myself to do it. But at the same time, I'm not compelled to do it just to prove to the world, hey, I'm a guy, I can also sew. So I think.
Hey, Kevin, I got to ask, how did you learn that? How did you learn to sew? I think it's very cool.
I've always felt getting, as I started getting bigger, a lot of clothes wouldn't fit, and I always dreamed about, man, how awesome would it be if I could make my own clothes? And although I'm not at that point yet, it started off just making, some lifting straps, and then I learned to make duffel bags. So I don't know. I just wanted to do it, so I did it. So it would be great to get to the point where I could make my own clothes. Cut the make the patterns, cut the fabric, and actually make a garment. As a practical thing for myself. But I guess getting back to muscularity and society. Yeah, I mean, I think part of it is a social thing. So just masculinity in general. Just if a guy is hypermuscular, the stereotype has always been there. Oh, he's big and muscular and dumb. So that's always been there. But I think that has grown, that sentiment, characterizing hypermuscular men as being stupid, as attempting to compensate for something. When in reality, I don't think bodybuilders are really any different than any other athlete, in the sense that what compels an athlete to, want to run the fastest or jump the highest or, dunk the most baskets. It's all really the same drive, and it doesn't have to be that someone is compensating for something. It just because it's someone that chooses to express their desire with weights rather than a basketball or a football doesn't make them dumb.
Evan, this is not even meant to be, painfully obvious as far as why I'm asking this question. But you live in Trumbull, a very nice town, Trumbull, Connecticut. We live in Connecticut, by the way, folks, and everything is very close in Connecticut. So, you can drive an hour and go anywhere in Connecticut. But the point is, so you're obviously probably pretty well known. How do people react when they see you, when they see this overly pronounced muscularity?
I don't notice it, to be honest. I guess first and foremost, I'm not the kind of guy to go out in public, say in a tank top.
Right.
Unless I'm in the gym or I'm in that setting, I would usually prefer to kind of cover up a little more and maybe downplay my physique, because, the last thing you want people thinking is that you're being obnoxious or you're trying to be showy. And that's really not my personality anyways. I would prefer more to blend in than I would to stand out. So how do people react? I mean, I don't know. A lot of times when I go places, to be honest, I just kind of mind my own business, and I try, when I was younger, I would notice people staring a lot. Right.
Right.
And you wonder, like, is this person being rude? Like, what the hell are they looking at? And then you come to realize, no, it's just staring maybe because you look a little different or whatever. But I got really good at just not noticing people's reaction to me, just because I didn't ever want to wonder, is this person being rude or whatever. So I just really just try to mind my own business.
Yeah, no, I know your personality is very innocuous. You keep yourself and you're understated, which I think is very nice. Billy English, thanks, Ox, for the nutritional advice. I'm watching the YouTube videos. Very informative, motivating. They're great. They really are. And I watch them all the time. And I learned directly from them. Frank Ferry. Frank is one of my members. He's 72. He's like a rock. He lost 100 pounds. Never gained it back. It's very interesting. My mother was a seamstress and had a sewing machine. She left the mix. She learned to sew as well. Excellent drapery. So, it's all about having multiple streams of income. So, you could start, making drapes maybe.
When it comes to masculinity or femininity, I think, any person, regardless of your sex, we should all learn to do things that are of practical use, whether it's laundry, cooking. It doesn't matter whether you're a man or woman. But like I said, I find it annoying if it seems like someone is trying to prove themselves. Like, I'm trying to do this, whether I'm a girl trying to do a traditionally male task or vice versa, I'm doing it just to prove something to the world. I just find that annoying.
Yeah, right. No, going back, so you got out of high school, you went to a very good school, Fairfield University, and you kept training, obviously, but you didn't. I've got up muscle memory. I know your history, but just so I'm, on point here. Your first show was 2005. Were you still in college for the Atlantic States when you went in that?
No, I was 1 year out of school.
And somebody said to you, "Hey, man, you should go on a show." That's how it went, right?
Yeah, buddy of mine at the time that I was training with, named Ron Rich, plumber by trade, but big dude and bodybuilder, and he was competing back at the time, and he had done several contests where I had not yet competed, and we were working out together. It was a world gym at the time, and he goes, "Dude, you got to do a contest. You got to do a show." And I was just so green, I was like, that would be cool. I just don't know anything about it. And
Evan,
he was like,
at that point, had you even been to a show?
I think maybe I had been to like a Muscle Mania,
Okay.
maybe like a local NPC, like maybe
Right.
one or two shows,
Right. Okay.
But I didn't even know, what the NPC was. I knew nothing about the various competing organizations, anything. I knew nothing. I knew how to get big and strong, and I also knew how to get in shape, but I couldn't tell you how to time it. I wouldn't have known what show to enter or even how to enter it. So, having Ron there to just be like, "Listen, dude, you're ready to do it. Trust me." I'm like, "Really? You think I'm ready to get on a stage?" He's like, "Trust me, you're ready."
Evan, let's just backtrack for a second because you're with this plumber now and he's helping you. But prior to that, prior to going to an actual gym, you made a lot of progress at home, right? And you learned on your own initially, correct? Nobody was really helping.
Yeah, I mean, I did a lot in my basement. I got up to the point where I was benching almost 400 pounds, squatting the same. I learned how to bench and squat and deadlift them. All I had was free weights. So I had to get really, really good at all, barbell rows and dumbbell rows and just really all the free weight stuff. So yeah, I made some pretty good progress. Like I said, by the time I graduated high school, I was 225 pounds and, not fat. So yeah, I made some good progress in my basement.
So what was the first gym? I might know what it was. Was it out in the Fairfield area that you went to?
Yeah, so the first commercial gym I belonged to, my cousin was working there, and they gave him a membership that he could give to a family member. And it was, it's now become, really franchised, but at the time it was called the Fitness Edge. Now it's just turned into the Edge.
Yeah. Right.
But there were a few clubs, there was only maybe 4 or 5 of them.
Right.
But, the gym was in a building that was previously a Gold's gym. And, the disparity between a gym like that and maybe a World's or a Gold's, it wasn't that big. It's not like now you have these really overly corporate style gyms and then you have a hardcore gym. Even for a gym that was named the Fitness Edge, it was a pretty good freaking gym, to be honest.
Yeah, you train hard there.
It's changed a lot now since they franchised and whatever. It's different, but
right. Yeah, you were able to use chalk and all that stuff. I think we're at the best gym now, Powerhouse in New Haven. It's kind of hard to beat.
It's the best. I mean, there's nothing even close to it. I have to be honest. I've been to gyms forgetting the state. There's nothing close to it in the state, but I've been to gyms all over the country and all over the world for that matter. Look, Venice Gold's is awesome in its own regard, But I got to be honest, Powerhouse New Haven is just a hell of a gym.
Yeah, you can't beat it. I was just talking to him. I always thank Richie when I see him. I say, Richie, I'm riding on the highway and I see the light illuminated. It like brightens in the darkness. I thank you for keeping this place going because people don't understand. I mean, you're in business. I'm in business. And business is very hard. It's
Sure.
And even a guy like you, the state you're in, people don't understand that you have to always work hard, always. It doesn't stop, and it's the same thing with the gym. Getting a little reverb.
It doesn't stop.
So you went in the Atlantic States, and that's a Bev Francis show. So what was that like? Obviously, that was probably a little scary, maybe at first.
It was probably good that I didn't know anything because I had people telling me before the show, they're like, "Why'd you pick that as your first show?" oh, you're gonna get murdered. Why that one? That's a big show, and blah 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 blah. I was like, I don't know. That's the show I'm doing. So I did it, and I fucking won it. So hey, I guess Ron was right.
Evan, but when people said things like that to you, because you don't really hang with those types of people who, you're going to get murdered. I mean, were they just like by chance, they happen to know it wasn't, those weren't people in your circle, obviously.
No, I remember I was in Stanford one time because back then I was working as a title searcher. So I was all over the state, right? So when I was in Stanford, I would hit up Tommy K's, because keep in mind, this is 2004 or 5,
Yeah.
And, the online thing isn't what it is now. So I would buy my supplements from him. He had good prices. He had a big selection. So I would go into Tommy K's in Stanford. I was there maybe on like a Saturday morning, and I'm, loading up on all my stuff. And there's some guy, and, I'm in good shape at this time. I'm maybe 4 weeks out. And, some guy in line saying, oh, what are you getting ready for a contest? And I said, oh yeah, oh, what show are you doing? Oh, the Atlantic States. Oh, big show. And he was all negative. He was a judge. He tells me he's a judge and all this shit. Okay,
that's good.
And he's like, yeah, you're gonna have a real hard time. It's a big show. And I'm like, I don't know. I've been really killing myself. I think I'm in pretty good shape. And I will never forget what he said. He goes, well, it's a bodybuilding contest, not a pretty good shape contest.
He said that to you.
And I said, oh, all right. I felt like saying, okay, asshole, thanks for your fucking 2 cents.
Evan, I've actually got a question in my arsenal for dumbass statements like that. It's a passive aggressive statement on his behalf. I just say, what do you mean by that? And they usually shut the hell up. So you're going to evoke what they just say what you mean. Are you trying to tell me don't go on the show? What the hell does that even mean? And the guy's a judge. Oh, that's fantastic.
Right. It depends on, the mood I'm in. Plus, I'm a little older now. If you had said it to me now, I might just say, oh, thanks for the warning.
Yeah.
Or I might just say, you sound like a real asshole. It really just depends on what mood I'm in,
Yeah.
But whatever.
Well, so you went in and you won it, and that's a big, big show. And I remember you telling me, because I asked you, and you said, if I came in like 7th, I probably would have just stopped, but I happened to win. So I said, okay, let me try another one. So the same year, the next year, you won the junior nationals. Did you realize that was a pretty big thing?
Oh yeah, I mean when I did the Atlantic States, I was just doing it like a one-time thing,
Right.
Like I didn't have this grandiose thing in my head. I'm gonna become a pro bodybuilder and
Right. That's
conquer
good.
the world.
I think that's a better it's a better way to. You can't listen. If you keep your expectations low with anything, it's a happier life. It's not to have zero expectations, but that's kind of, look at all the guys that want to be number one. There's only going to be one guy that's number one, and that's not going to last that long anyhow. So, the law of averages. So your first year in the Nationals was only the second year you competed and came in second. You almost won.
Yeah, so 06, I like I said, I was just going to compete one time, and I was out that year, 2005. I went out to watch the Olympia, and I was in a gym working out over in Vegas, and some photographer comes over, and he says to me, I can't remember if it was Irvin Gelb or Bill Comstock. I think it was Bill Comstock, but maybe the two of them were there. I forget, but they ended up introducing me to Ed Connors. They said, there's this guy you should meet. You should meet Ed. You should talk to him. And, what are you doing? Who are you? Blah, blah, blah. I'm like, I'm just the guy who came to watch the Olympia. So, Ed was great. And I'm still friends with Ed to this day. I found him to be such a positive influence. And, he really just encouraged me from the beginning. He said, I think you have more than you realize, and you should pursue this further. And he ended up inviting me. He sent me a plane ticket, and he said, go watch the Nationals. He goes, I think if you watch the show, you might feel more compelled to work toward doing it, which, me going and sitting in the audience at the Nationals, I'm looking at everybody thinking, holy shit, everybody looked crazy. I think it just scared the shit out of me more. But I end up on a plane ride back. I was coming back from Vegas after meeting Ed, actually. And I met Dave Palumbo.
I have to interject one thing. You may not know this, but Ed, years ago, because Ed's coming on the show, he's scheduled a while from now, but originally, many years ago, he was an architect by trade, and he was on Orange Street in New Haven. Did you know he was in New Haven? Oh, you did know that?
Yep, he told me. Yep.
Okay, most people don't know that.
Yeah. And in the airport on the way back from the Olympia, I end up sitting next to Dave Palumbo, and we get talking, and he says, who are you? And he ends up looking me up, and he saw some pictures from the Atlantic States, and he said, wow, holy shit.
Wait, Dave, so right there, Dave didn't know who you were at that point.
No, not until we got talking, Right. Because, I had only done one contest. Nobody knew who I was.
Right.
So, who are you? Oh, wow, you look good. You should do another show. Let me help you. Okay. So he says, you should do the Junior Nationals. Okay. I don't know anything about it, but let's do it. So we end up doing it. Next, the following, it was June. And
how far afield was that? Was that a whole year from the first show? Like you had to stay in pretty good shape?
Actually, come to think of it, it was almost exactly a year because it was June to June.
Okay.
So under Dave's, guidance, I win the Junior Nationals. So now I'm thinking to myself, okay, holy shit, maybe I do have something.
Did Dave help you? Like he taught you some stuff about he's smart. He's really smart guy.
Oh yeah. Dave took me through the whole process. He was my coach. He helped me with the diet, posing, everything. Any way he could help me, he helped me.
Wow.
So under his guidance, I win the Junior Nationals, and he says, look, you just won the Junior Nationals. You got to go and do the Nationals later this year. So I do. And ended up taking runner-up to Desmond, who ended up winning the overall.
Yeah, you were telling me.
By that time, I was convinced.
You were telling me he had some serious wheels there, and you had to work on them.
Oh,
yeah, it was.
Desmond had some of the wackiest legs I've ever seen.
Sometimes,
even to this day, even as I went on as a pro and competed against other guys, to this day, Desmond had some of the craziest legs I'd ever seen.
Wow. But even still, second, and then people think you came out of nowhere, but of course you've been working for years and years. You're still really young at this point, early 20s, right? When you first did the Nationals.
Yeah, that year I was 24. I came back the next year at 25 and won the Nationals.
And then you became a pro. And I'm just going to read down, and not to make this sound easy because a lot of hard work, obviously, but Nationals in 2007, you won the New York Pro, which was originally Night of the Champions 2009. First time you went in the Arnold Classic, 4th place. And we're going to talk about that a little because we really want to talk about nutrition. We're going to get to that. But Flex, you won the Flex Pro in Santa Monica. And it was only Branch Warren, Dennis Wolf, and Victor Martinez who were ahead. So you beat Dexter Jackson, and that was after. How did Dexter feel about you beating him after he won the Olympics?
I'd always been a fan of Dexter's. I always thought he had an incredible physique. Really different from mine, him being maybe on the shorter side and just, big round muscle bellies that I don't have. So I was always a fan, and competing against him in the show, I think he was really focused. Maybe I took it as him maybe being a little bit standoffish, but I remember after prejudging, he came over to me and we got talking, and he was really a nice guy, and we've been friends ever since. But it's not like he was sore about it or a jerk about it or anything. He was a really nice guy, and like I said, we've been friends ever since.
Yeah, I had Gunter Schlitterkamp on the other night, and he beat Ronnie in a show of strength during his 8th Mr. Olympia run. But Ronnie was doing a bunch of shows. He was a little run down, and he was very gracious about it. True champions are that. They're humble, they're gracious. Sometimes you got to get to know them and learn. And then Arnold Classic 2012.
And let me just say this too. to be fair, I was really, really on, right, when I beat Dexter. And Dexter was far from his best.
Oh, okay.
So
Well,
I just feel it necessary to add that footnote, because the reality is Dexter is a much greater bodybuilder than I've ever been or ever will be. So, I just need to
at his Apex. Okay. Than you ever will be. We'll talk about that. But that's like the year I won the Natural Mr. Connecticut. It was a very weak year. 11 competitors compared to the usual 50. And, I happened to be the one that chose me first. So, as a representative, whoever shows up, I mean, obviously, but, if it's legit, if it's full fuel, look, I'm the best mediocre bodybuilder. That's kind of a boast. That's kind of not really. All right, so the 2012 Arnold was between you, Branch, and Dennis Wolf. What was that like?
That was that was intense. The year prior in my first Arnold taking fourth. So now, being in contention, top three, I thought, hey, maybe I've got a shot. Maybe I could win this thing. But obviously it wasn't to be. But both Dennis and Branch were fantastic. So.
What is it like being among the top in the Arnold? It's the Arnold. And did Arnold come back to you? Does he talk to you backstage, or does that go on at all?
Yeah. I think it was the night show, when we were waiting to go on, and Arnold was back there, and, he kind of came over and he was, making his way around a little bit. And I mean, dude, I'm not really a fan of many people, not to say that I don't like a lot of people, but just that I'm not, maybe that enamored. But dude, growing up in the 80s, there's nobody bigger than Arnold. And so I was, I'm blown away. I mean, there's nobody who can kind of the dude can fill a room. I mean, he is truly larger than life. And so I mean, to be there, I don't know. I wish I had thought of maybe something a little clever to say, or all the times I competed in his show and I never got a picture with him. Really, if there's really one person I would like a photo with, it would be Arnold. But, I would see how busy he was, or maybe he'd be sitting down at a restaurant, and I just never had the heart to ask because, I don't know. I just don't want to bother the guy.
I hear he's really, good with people, and, despite, I think he realizes his position. He's in very high demand, and it's like Cutler. I've often said, and I know Jay, and worked out with him, but one of the reasons Jay does so well in business, and he's still relevant many years after competing, is he maintains that bridge with his fans.
He has the right attitude.
Yeah. Everything he sends out, he signs. He's very giving, and I think that's very important. A lot of people, a guy like you, there are some people who can get a word or two from you, and not to put this on you, but you can potentially save their life. You're like their number one person. You know what I'm saying? You never know. You never know. A lot of people go through life invisible. So let's take it easy. You've competed. You've done very well. And blew your leg out. So tell us about that.
Say it one more time, Mike.
Take us to where you blew your leg out. The knee injury.
Oh, yeah. So it had just snowed the night before. I got in my car. I'm leaving my house, and I forgot something. So I go to get back out. I plant my foot on the ground, and you go back, like your feet are going to go out from under you. So it must have just been like that sudden reaction to try to catch myself, and you contract your quad really quickly from the hip. And it has something to do with the position you're in. Plus, you go from the quad being not loaded to suddenly loaded. And it was enough to rip the quad tendon right off the kneecap. So, I hit the ground, and immediately I said, oh shit. I mean, it was excruciatingly painful. You know, your knee is bending, and you can't stop it. And you hear and you feel everything ripping, popping, crunching, and you hit the ground. And you can't.
So you knew right there that it was significant.
Oh yeah, because I'm laying on the ground in the snow and I can't even straighten my leg out.
Okay.
You know, it's detached. So I'm saying, oh shit, this is bad. And you know, I pulled myself up by the car door and I'm standing there and I yelled, you know, to Erica, and she came out, and you know, I'm like, I think I just tore my quad tendon. And you know, I sat in the back seat of my truck. I said, all right, well, drive me to the hospital. So we start driving to the hospital, and I said, wait a minute, hold on. I don't even know who the surgeon is at the hospital. What are we doing? Go back home. Because after the tear took place, I'm in pain, but I'm not in like excruciating pain. So I'm like, hold on, let's go back home. And to go back home, and you know, I had to figure everything out with my insurance because I wanted to get it done in New York. You know, I started looking at surgeons. And so I see HSS, the Hospital for Special Surgery in Manhattan. And I said, you know, I think I want to go here. Supposed to be the #1 orthopedic hospital in the country. And
did somebody recommend a surgeon to you? Somebody recommend?
No one recommended the surgeon, but my aunt was actually the one who had recommended the hospital.
Okay.
So, you know, I'm looking at doctors and I say, this guy, you know, I'm reading his resume. I say, this guy seems qualified. Like, you know, let's have him do it. So now I got to clear it with my insurance to make sure if it's out of state, they're going to pay it. So I'm sitting there on the phone for the next 5 days, all freaking day long, trying to figure it out and being told yes, then being told no, and then blah, 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 blah. So I don't know. So I just said, okay, screw it. Booked, you know, set up a surgery with him. I think it was 5 or 6 days after the injury occurred. He got me in, we did it, and I don't know.
Here's
the beginning of a long and shitty recovery process.
But did you tell him your hopes? Because, you know, a lot of times.
Yeah, I said, Doc, I brought, you know, I show him on my phone. I say, Doc, this is me. I'm a professional bodybuilder. I want to go back to this. I want to look like this again. I need to squat a lot of weight. I need to be strong.
yeah. Right.
And he's just like, yeah, you're going to do it. No problem. Big deal. Good. It's fine. Don't worry. You know, everything was just, yeah, okay. So
Ev, you know, most of the time they don't say that. You know that, right? They're very.
He's telling me. He's got all different.
I'm sorry, especially shoulder. They'll always tell you you're never going to do anything overhead again, and if you let it heal properly, you can. So you know, there's reservations. We've got somebody. I'm going to just put this up. I don't know if you're agreeable to it. I just joined. Thank you for this live chat. Can Evan show us his physique, show his T-shirt, his arms, and his abs and back?
No, I don't think so.
No, you know, thanks, Blue Cools. But you know, Evan is working. You know, he's going to be competing eventually, and plus he's got to get paid for that type of stuff. We don't have the budget here at MTFU currently for that. So, you know, but you'll see him on stage very soon. Thanks for joining me. So I remember you having a surgery. In a wheelchair.
Yeah, you know, because I wasn't even really supposed to be in the gym. You know, you got the leg locked straight in a brace. You're not supposed to even bend the knee. But, you know, I want to go back to the gym. I want to at least do something, you know, train my upper body a little bit, do a little something. But I don't really trust myself walking around with crutches. You know, what if, you know, I just had this accident. So now I'm super conscious and super worried about hurting myself again. And the last thing I want to do is end up back on this leg, you know, put pressure on it when I'm not supposed to. So I said, fuck it. I'll just buy a wheelchair. I'll go to the gym in a wheelchair. That way I can't screw up. So I did. And I did that for a few weeks. And then once I got to the point where I was comfortable enough going around with the crutches and felt confident with that. So, you know, it's just this process of working your way up.
Evan, I have to ask you this. You're a world-level athlete, you know, one of the best in the world now. It's almost impossible to become best in the world at anything. I'm always enamored with that. I know you get, you know, you don't like to talk about that because you're very humble. But Did you get down when that happened to your leg? I mean, that's a terrible. That threatens your trajectory that you're planning. Did you get down at any point?
Yeah, of course. I remember being on the phone with my dad that day, and him being like, is it bad? I go, yeah, my career is over. That's it. That's the end. It's done.
Really?
Yeah, that was the immediate as I'm laying there on the ground in the fucking snow. That's the first thing going through my head is I'm fucked. Yeah. That's it. It's over.
Do you start thinking really quick, like, what am I going to do instead? Do you think, how it goes real quick like that?
No, I was just pissed.
Okay.
I was just consumed with frustration and anger. But a few days go by and you go, well, you know what? Fucking, maybe, Branch Warren did it. Victor Martinez did it.
Yeah.
Maybe I can do it. So that's the way I've always thought about most things, especially when I'm having feelings of doubt or I don't know what the hell I'm doing. I'll say, well, this guy did it. He's not a rocket scientist. So if he could figure it out, maybe I could figure it out too. So I try to think that way when there's something uncertain or I don't know what I'm doing or don't know if I can do something. I usually tend to look at someone else who did it and said, okay, if he could do it, then maybe there's a chance I can do it.
I know you're an athlete with Universal. They're a really good company, and you really like being with them, and they let you do other things, which is great. They were obviously behind you when this happened, right? They supported you.
Yeah, I was kind of worried too, because I'm set to compete, and of course that's exciting for them. That draws attention to them, and I remember calling up the owner, or I don't know if I called him or I sent an email and said, shit, this just happened. And I think I wanted to make sure they heard it first from me before any word got out otherwise. So I kept it hush and I told them first, and they were awesome. They were just like, listen, do what you got to do, heal up, you've got your place here and we're behind you. So that was great.
Blue Cools wants to for his question. Taking the show, wants to know. Thank you. No worries. When will Evan start posing his own videos again? His kitchen stuff. Those are great. I love those. His update on any new supplements.
No new supplements. Well, there actually is something I may be working on. It's not a definite yet, but obviously, again, same as the situation was with Animal Meal. A collaboration between Animal and myself. So it's not a definite yet. It's still in the exploratory phase, but possibly. As for the videos, I need to just hammer down a good local videographer, someone who can, we can work together, because I have all sorts of ideas and I know it's something I should be doing regularly, and I'm being an asshole and a bum and not doing it. So I need to do it.
There's a lot, I think you want to do I do my own videos, as you know, and I hire local guys, and nothing is easy. It's like Les Brown says, if you do it as easy, your life will be hard, but if you do it as hard, your life will be easy. So you got to kind of fall. You got to kind of fall in the middle a little bit. But I still refer to them. But he's right, man. We got to see some new ones. We're going to talk about nutrition in a minute. Let's see here. Oh, yeah, and we want to talk about the Animal Meal. And, the thing is with supplements, I'm going to call you EAS versus Twin Lab. And I had Rehan Jalali on here, and I don't know if you know Rehan. He's he trains all the Hollywood stars, Stallone and all those guys. But he was on the ground floor of EAS when they started. He developed a lot of their supplements. He's a PhD, real smart guy. And he said, one of the reasons why EAS was so successful, this kind of ties into you. They only had 6 supplements, flagship supplements, and they really worked on them, made sure they were effective. Twin Lab, nothing against Bleckman, but they have like 1,000. These one doesn't work, they go to the next. And I know when I first met you, you were all about, because I asked you, what should I be taking for supplements, and we didn't go there. You were all about whole foods, and even still, even with the literature that you put out through Animal, it says right in here, and even the company, you guys attest to the mainstay attitude that food comes first, actual whole foods.
Always, listen, anything that I put out, I'm never going to put out something, number one, if I don't believe in it. Number two, if I don't use it myself.
Right.
And number three, I would never, like when I talk about animal meals, sometimes people will be like, oh, this is crap. Why are you telling people to eat this? They should be eating food. And I would say the same thing. Yeah, of course you should be eating food. Food is number one. This isn't as good as food. The food will always be best.
You've already said that.
This is the next best thing, when you don't have food available. I would never, because that's not what I believe. I don't believe a supplement is better than food. I mean, I believe a supplement is just that. It's to have your back, fill in a gap, maybe provide something that's missing. So no, of course, animal meal will never take the place of food. No. So, I mean, I always try to be sensitive to that and preface, if I'm going to talk about animal meal, I always try to preface it with that idea.
Let me just tell you about one 1950s government commission, and then you could tell us about animal meal and how you formulated it, and obviously the good points. The points are good. There was a commission in the 50s. For instance, if you had Mickey Mantle, the baseball player, endorsing, I don't know, spam or something. The commission would visit his house and make sure that he actually had stuff in his house. So you had to, I don't know whether it was effective or not. They don't have that now. But obviously, this is a good product. I use it myself. I even made a video on it. So tell us, no artificial ingredients. You had a very strong hand in developing.
So this is the deal. In the beginning, I used whey protein powders. I tried casein. I tried all different stuff. Whey concentrate, whey isolate, and I used all of it. Over the years with a degree of success, different meal replacements, Metrex, Myoplex, all that stuff. And I did okay with all of it. I mean, it wasn't until 2009 when I was getting ready for the New York Pro and I was working with Oscar and he said, listen, we're getting rid of all the shakes, all that stuff, just having whole food, right? And I saw my body improve. All right. Like I after that, I believed. But after the show was over, look, shakes are convenient and they taste good. Sometimes it breaks up the monotony of the diet. They're convenient. But when I went back to having them, I just couldn't tolerate any of them. I don't know if it was because I had eliminated them from my diet for a period of time. But my body was just not having it. I mean, I would have a shake, whether it was just, a meal replacement or a whey shake. It didn't matter if it was the finest isolate available. I would literally feel like I'd been freaking poisoned when I would have it. So I just said, fuck it. This isn't worth it. I'll just eat whole food, which I did for years. Every once in a while, I would get so sick of just all the food. I'd say, man, it'd just be nice to have one shake a day or whatever. And I would try it. And then I would learn my lesson all over again and say, okay, I can't do it. Back to whole food. As some of the, vegan proteins started coming around, I tried a couple of those and they were okay. But I didn't, a lot of times I didn't feel was I confident in the muscle building abilities of them. And to be honest, some of them would still bloat me a little bit. I don't know if they had too much fiber in them, whatever it was. A lot of times they put gums to thicken them up. And it just, again, I would just feel better if I had whole food. Animal and I were talking, and
Evan,
they said, come out with a new weight.
Evan, I'm sorry. Everything you were saying, you've discussed with Ant, like you sat down with them and you told them all of this. Like, this is what happened.
Well, that's what I'm getting to. They approached me and they said, we're thinking about doing a new meal replacement. Or, we're thinking about doing a weight gainer. And I said, you know what? Why a weight gainer? It would be great if there was a good meal replacement on the market. Because since Myoplex and Metrex, they haven't really, gone anywhere. They really haven't evolved. Those were so big in the late 90s, early 2000s.
Did you like Metrex? I use a lot of Metrex. Is big.
Yeah, I loved it.
Yeah.
I loved it. Back when I could tolerate it, I loved it. But if you really break it down, it wasn't the greatest blend of protein, and it was just some cheap maltodextrin. So, no good fats, cheap carbs, and so-so proteins, not really well balanced, but tasting delicious and better than eating McDonald's or Taco Bell.
Right.
So I said to Animal, it would be a freaking godsend if there was a good meal replacement on the market. Can we please work on that? I have an idea for one. And they said, yeah, let's take a stab at it. So, put together a blend of rice protein, pea protein. We initially tried it with rice, but the taste and stuff wasn't great. So the blend we arrive at is beef, egg, and pea, right? So a good blend. Now with beef protein, you got to watch, because some people just put in collagen in the they're calling it beef protein. So it conjures up this idea in your mind, this protein was derived from a piece of steak.
Yeah.
And that's not the case. They're boiling down bones and hides, and
right.
it's just fucking collagen. So the beef protein we use comes from the whole animal, right? So it's not just collagen protein, but also egg protein and pea. So it's a solid blend, right? The amino acid profile is excellent.
Forgive me, but why those three together in the same combination?
Because if you just say you're going to keep it vegan, right? Say you just do pea and rice, or I don't know, there's a bunch of other ones. The amino acid profile is so-so. So if you take something like pea, which is really strong in some regards, but then also something like beef and egg, they all complement each other extremely well and make for just a really good, well-rounded amino acid profile that is also easy to digest, which for me was the number one priority, right? It's got to digest well, and it's got to have a good amino acid profile, because even if it digests perfectly, it doesn't do me any good if it's not going to support my goals, right? I want it to be as close to whole food as possible. So that's the protein blend. And when it comes to carbs, we ended up using some oats, sweet potato. But rather than go 100% complex, we went a little bit dextrose. And people go, why would you put dextrose in the formula? The reason is, if you got a protein, you got a formula, right? There's protein, you've got some complex carbs, you've got fats in the formula. It's going to digest at a really steady rate anyways. So rather than use all complex carbohydrates and let the thing hit your stomach like a ball of lead, there's just no reason for it. So this is something I want to get into when it comes to nutrition, some, kind of myths that I had to personally dispel myself. You want something that is going to digest well, not something that is going to sit in your stomach for hours, all right, or make you bloated or gassy in the name of it, being complex or.
I want to stop you. I learned this from you. This seems to be a major problem, and you outlined that. I would ask you questions, and you would always say, as long as it digests well. So you see that replicated throughout, people eating these things that are not absorbed, are not digested well. That's an issue, isn't it?
No, and there's certain buzzwords, right? Like fiber. Like I remember we're putting the formula together, and Animal says, well, don't we want to add fiber to this? And I said, hell no. Look, I've used other products. Like, for example, Garden of Life, right? Great brand. Kind of a crunchy brand, all natural. They put out a protein, right? It's all natural. It's all vegan, but they add all this fiber to it. I used it one time. All I did was fart for the next 8 hours. Fucked my stomach up from all the fiber, right? So there's these buzzwords like fiber, prebiotics, all this happy horse shit that sounds good and it looks good on a label, but the reality is, from a digestive standpoint, it may not help you. So you want a product that digests well. And when it comes to animal meal, and for the fats, we used olive oil, and then we got some fat from whole egg from the yolks. So it's all whole food based, all natural. There's no artificial sweeteners, colors, flavors, preservatives, none of that crap, right? Naturally sweetened, flavored, etc. It just works. So, and again, something can look great on paper, but when it comes to real world application, it could be shit. So the way I know, right, when we were testing it, I would have a shake, say, an hour before a workout. Now, if you're not going to tolerate something well, try it before you train and you'll know, because you're going to feel like you're going to shit yourself. So I would use it. Not only would I not feel any gastrointestinal distress, anything like that, but more importantly, zero fluctuation in blood sugar, because that's another problem. You use some of these products before you train, halfway through the workout, you're in a cold sweat, feeling like you're going to vomit and you're going to pass out because your blood sugar just totally tanked. So when people are like, oh, there's 10 grams of dextrose, why did you do that? Buddy, trust me. All I did was give your digestive system a break, and you thank me for it, okay? Because there's not going to be any blood sugar fluctuations. It's totally fine. And the beauty of it, right? I wanted a product that you could use both off-season or pre-contest. Now, in an off-season, the goal is food volume. For most guys, once you get to a certain size, the limiting factor is how hard can I train and how much food can I eat, right? Which is why guys use steroids, right? Because it makes you do more of both. Train harder, use more food. That's the way you build more muscle. Right? But for a lot of guys, food is a limiting factor. They cannot eat enough. So I don't want to put together a product that you're going to use and then you can't eat again for 4 or 5 hours because you're so damn full. The beauty of this product is you could use it and you're satisfied 2 hours, 3 hours, you feel fine. But if you took it and you had to eat again in an hour, you could do that too. It just works. And I'm not saying it's because I'm a genius or because I'm a scientist or an engineer. We just put together a formula and it worked.
I have a question. So you said, yeah, it's very good when you miss a meal, but how about the guys that have to get 12 meals in a day? That's, a reality for some. Is that a good way to make up those extra meals? Actually take this as a
because look, there's only so much chicken or steak or whatever. It all starts to get like,
yeah.
How much more of this crap can I eat? So a shake, if it is a good one, can be a really valuable addition to your diet. Again, not to take the place of whole food, but to either use when you don't have whole food available or to put on top of whole food.
Evan, let me ask you a question. Blue Cool, thanks, Evan. He's really passionate about animal meal. Blue, we go through life trying to, whether you know it or not, you're trying to find the real thing. The real thing is like a guy that I wasn't able to meet, and I really wish I did, Jack LaLanne. And Evan, I know, is real. He's consistent. He does everything that he says here. And that's rare, so we're very lucky to have him. Thank you for your questions. If you got more, please shoot them to us. Evan, the bloating that people get from do you think that's an issue with stomach distension and some of the guys that have the big guts and whatnot? What do you think about that?
Maybe. Look, if you're not digesting food well, either because you're eating the wrong foods, they're just not good for you, or a lot of guys, some of the things they do, using things like oral steroids, doing other things maybe that beat up on their liver. Look, your liver has everything to do with digestion. So if your liver's beat up, good luck digesting the amount of food you need to digest. And then again, you're going to end up bloated. So digestive health is huge, and you're not going to have digestive health or any other form of health for that matter if you're abusing the shit out of yourself. So even though bodybuilding tends to be looked at as an extreme sport, which there's no denying that it is, there must still be an element of health if you're going to have the best result you can have. Because the reality is an unhealthy body doesn't grow well. It doesn't burn fat well. It doesn't do any of the things that you want it to do well as a bodybuilder, unless there's a degree of health, right? Look, if your body can't take care of the tissue that it has, meaning you're in some way you're sick or you're not functioning properly, the body is going to be having a hard enough time healing what it has, maintaining what it has, there's no fucking way it's going to put on 10 pounds of muscle. There's no way. It can't maintain the real estate that it currently has. So you have to,
originally that's why
you have to be reasonably healthy.
Right. And you're a friend that's, we have you on here for obvious reasons, but also you've always been about good health. We talked about that initially when I first started talking to you about helping me. And we're all about longevity here, aging without getting old. But you also made a good point when we were training one day. I guess my posture wasn't good. And you made a great point. And this ties into good health. You said, why would you want to curl or press with your body out of natural position? Everything you do in the gym should replicate or make stronger your body's proper posture and biomechanics. I mean, is that kind of related to what you're saying?
Yeah, I mean, look, if someone's doing a bicep curl and they stagger their feet, right? One foot is in front of the other. Yeah. Or you do a deadlift with a mixed grip. If you're with a mixed grip, if you're a power lifter, okay, fine. But if you're a bodybuilder and you're doing deadlift with a mixed grip, it's just stupid. You can't hope to achieve symmetry with an asymmetrical approach.
Right, that's true.
Just like, people look at bodybuilders and they say, man, that guy must be really unhealthy. But the reality is a lot of bodybuilders do a lot of things right. I'm not saying they're angels, and they certainly do, we do our fair share of other things, okay? But eat a good diet, get enough sleep every night, drink plenty of water, do cardio, don't do recreational drugs, don't smoke, don't drink. You know what I'm saying? So bodybuilders may do a couple things that, they're calculated hopefully into the equation. And a lot of times people would look at me and they'd almost be like, why are you talking about health? You're a bodybuilder, almost like it's hypocritical or whatever. And I would say, dude, what you're saying is so stupid. It's like you saying a NASCAR driver is a hypocrite because he wears a helmet and a seatbelt and a fireproof suit. Should he just get in bare bones and just drive 200 miles an hour? No, of course he's going to use whatever protection he can. He knows the risks. He knows what he's doing is fucking dangerous. That's why he's going to try to take steps to mitigate those risks.
That's a great example. There's a statement here, and I also have a question for you. Blue Cools again. Is there any other supplements that Evan is taking, like fat burners currently?
Well, to go over the supplements, right? From Animal Meal, Animal Pack, and Animal Omega are my three most important products. They're kind of like my foundation, right? Animal Pack being a multivitamin and mineral, Animal Omega being essential fatty acids, and Animal Meal being something I look to if I need to add more, basically, food into my diet. Outside of that, Animal Nitro, which is an awesome essential amino acid product that when you're dieting and you're in a reduced calorie, you're in a calorie deficit, if you use a substantial enough dose, this is why, people will look at something like amino acids and they'll go, amino acids, big deal, boring. They don't even work. That's because people use a 5-gram dose of amino acids and big fucking deal. What are you going to get from 5 grams? You start using 20 grams of amino acids on an empty stomach in a calorie depleted state during training, you're going to feel it and you're going to see the difference. It's for real. But people, they would rather take 10 different products, but not use any one of them in an efficacious dose. Look, you don't need sprinkles of 10 different things. You need a good punch of, a couple meaningful things.
I like
so
that.
Even something as simple as amino acids, which people say, well, big deal. It's old. It's not sexy. No, that shit works.
Well, it's very effective. Zane used to take 200 caplets a day because he didn't want to eat a lot of whole food to keep his stomach small, and he was the first one to do that. Kind of a weird bird, anyhow. But tell me more about the Animal Nitro. Is that a thermogenic or a?
No, it's an essential amino acid product.
Oh, okay.
So something that's really going to just boost your recovery. And look, food is king. But with something like food, you actually have to digest it. Amino acids, free-form amino acids, don't even require digestion, basically. Right. It's like free protein. So you take 20 grams of it, it may very well be like the whole food equivalent of 50 or 60 grams of protein. So another, say, 20 grams of something like free-form amino acids, not just branch chains, but all 9 essential amino acids at a key time, it's almost like getting a whole nother meal's worth of protein. It can pay really big dividends.
That makes a lot of sense. We've got a very famous guy here, Evan, and I'm glad because he's been trying to get me to come down to his Shark Tank in South Carolina for years now. Because I think he wants to do. John Defendis is known for his 70 set per body part workouts. He's ranked number 4 all-time most intense. It's funny, Johnny, you come on now because I'm just going to, before we attend to your question and statement, I'm going to say something to Evan. I trained with Evan. I did really well. I think I did anyway. And then, I went to Italy, did what I had to do, and then Evan hurt his leg, and he was in a wheelchair for a while, so I would just see him and say hello. But he rolled up to me one day, and he looked at me, and he said, "Hey, Mike, this was really a question, but it was actually a statement." He said, "Mike, do you think you're training as hard as you could?" I think I fell off a little. So maybe my intensity dropped a little bit. Evan, let me ask you a question. In general, do people train hard enough in general?
No. People forget, because when you consider, right, training, nutrition, drugs, right, people forget that the reason why you train, right, if I have, say, 10 pounds of steak sitting in front of me, or chicken, or whatever it is, that is literally the muscle tissue from another animal, okay? It is muscle. And the question is, so it's building blocks. But the question is, how do I take these building blocks and turn them into my muscle, right? That is why you go to the gym, to create the need for food. The harder you train, the greater the demand for more protein and the more you can utilize. And that's when, steroids come last in the equation, because that's what helps to drive more food and, make just better utilization of all of it. But it's training, then food, then drugs. But training is first and foremost. And I think as time has gone on, training has just become more and more underrated and underemphasized and almost come last, in that triad.
Poliquin, God rest his soul, who just passed away, the famous strength trainer, he had a great axiom or maxim. It was, you must earn your carbohydrates. So you got to go in there and earn. But here's John Defendis. He's got a couple statements. Evan C., a giant monster. Hey, Evan, tell Michael Dusa to come down. No, Evan is coming down. He's going to be my emissary, and he's going to do the workout for me. By the way, my Intensity Insanity articles were the original Animal Pack articles. Universal paid me for.
I didn't know that. Obviously, I know John, from looking at the old muscle mags and what a hell of a physique. But I had no idea that he wrote for Animal. I didn't know. Very cool.
Blue has another. I guess it took Evan some time to figure his body out.
To receive that compliment from John Defendis is, thank you.
Isn't it cool, Evan? Listen,
because he's truly a legend.
This is part of my business that I'm building, but I get to, you're a friend and I'm old enough to be your father. You're 37, I'm 56, so there you go. But, I get it's like opening up Page of Muscle Builder from the 70s every day here. So, I get to talk to all these guys. It's very cool. And, we'll get back to John in a second, but Blue Cools, I guess Evan took some time to figure his body out. Was that true for you? I mean, you had success
I'm
still
figuring it out. Once you think you've got it figured out, things change. I mean, I think there's things that you'll find, maybe that you can apply during the course of a lifetime and they will always work. And then I think there's things that, you may try and go, wait a minute, this worked last time, but it's not working this time. So even once you think you have it figured out, you may find yourself relearning it.
John makes a good point here. John Defendis. Why would anyone take drugs to recover from a workout that they can recover from without drugs? And that makes sense.
Exactly. And that's exactly, that is the point. People don't realize you don't take drugs to go to the gym to work out hard. You go to the gym and work out hard, and you're training like such a fucking maniac that you can no longer recover. That's when you start using them.
Recovery. Yeah, because
people think they take drugs to go to the gym and work hard. That's not the way it works.
Yeah, talking to Jerry Brainham, the nutrition genius, he never took him. He competed in Arnold's Day, and he did okay. He won like Mr. Venice Beach. Very well schooled in all the nuances and tenets of anabolics. And he said, listen, if you're prudent, if I knew what I knew back then, I would have took him, under doctor's supervision and whatnot to help me along, along with the other more important things, the training, the rest, the nutrition, the knowledge and all that. Yeah, John says he's the old dude. John, the older you get, the less people there are ahead of you. So, there's more behind you. John, you are the best. Here we go. How does Evan feel like the social media on bodybuilding? More and more athletes talking on social media, but they endorse stuff also. Great that Evan is still true to himself. Yeah, we didn't have that back in the day, man. We had magazines. That was it.
I mean, social media, I think, is a double-edged sword. Look, right now we're taking advantage of technology. That's something that you and I wouldn't have been able to do 20 years ago. So, this is great. And obviously, social media delivers you to the whole world, and the world gains access to you, interaction increases. It's great. However, on the flip side, I think I always try to look at the bottom line. Do I think that the bodybuilding / fitness industry is better now than it was 20 years ago? No, definitely not.
Really? Wow.
And I think part of it is because there's too much accessibility. Yeah. So as much as we could say, oh, this accessibility is great, it's wonderful, which I agree. However, in the past, say there was an event, someone puts on a show. You have to go to the show if you want to get a glimpse of that guy, if you want to shake his hand, if you want to get a picture with him. And in doing so, it's pretty fucking exciting.
Oh, yeah.
And if you get a photo with that dude, it's pretty meaningful.
Very.
Now, it's different. What I'm saying is I think it took away a lot of the allure. Is that good for fans? No, I don't think that's good for fans. Look, you go to an expo now, everybody's got their cell phones. No one buys an 8x10. Now, I'm not saying this as someone who could prospectively be selling an 8x10. I'm saying this as a fan, okay? I would have rather have gone to a show. I don't want a shitty picture on my cell phone.
No.
It's cool to have a picture with the guy, but I want a professional photo, and I want him to sign it to me. That's special.
Yes.
For $10? Yeah, I'd pay him fucking $10, right? That's exciting. Now, it doesn't exist. Maybe people don't give a shit. Maybe it's different now. The attitude is different. For me, something like that is meaningful. I'm going to take it home. I'm going to keep it forever. Maybe I'll put it on my wall. Maybe I'll show it to my kids someday. If you look at the rest of the industry as well, if you look at content, people say, well, it's great now. All these guys are putting out content. All right. Yeah, I guess they're putting out content. But a lot of the content that was being put out by the magazines was all professional. Open up a magazine. You had these beautiful photos, whether it was from someone like Per Bernal or Brian Moss or Chris Lund or, all these, great photographers. You had beautiful photos. You had professionally written articles. Now I've got to settle for reading some, half-assed wannabe motivational fucking quote that looks like it was written by an 8th grader. It's the quality. I don't think people realize the quality has gone down. So there's a much greater abundance, but I don't think it's as good. And also, oh, sorry, I forgot what I was going to say.
No, that's okay. We'll get back to it. Do you see Sergio is trying to make it to the big leagues? He's with a minor league, but he's a top-level baseball player, great guy. Do you see proper training as like a skill set? And he says such as hitting a baseball or throwing a football 60 yards.
Well, I suppose. But I think anyone. Well, I don't know. I shouldn't say just anyone can train hard. I guess anyone can train harder, but some people are kind of opposed to pain, right? There's some people that just don't. Look, pain hurts. So the natural tendency is for the body to say, hey, that hurts. Stop doing that to me. Stop making me feel that. But I guess the point is, at what point does one person stop and listen versus carry on? And that's the difference. So some people, I think, just don't have it in them. But I think for most people, yeah, they can acquire that skill set to basically ignore the pain and to routinely challenge the body and push past, previous, barriers and create further adaptation.
You gave me a very good compliment once. I had to know after I trained with you for 6 months. That was back in 2016, I think, when I went to Italy. And I asked you at the end, I said, I really have to know, did I do everything I could, as close as possible? And you said, look, 98% of the people would have stopped once they found out how hard. That's one thing I want to say. And also, John Romano, a friend of mine, I had him on here. He said, listen, to be good at this, and this is kind of dicey because you want to attract people to, endeavors and he said, you must suffer. Would you agree with those things?
Yeah. And I mean, it all depends maybe on your genetic, how good your genetics are. So maybe some guys don't have to suffer as much. However, even if you have fantastic genetics, you'd probably look even better if you did suffer. So right. There's no doubt about that. But it's not for everyone. Look, you look around, people like drinking beer, they like eating pizza. They like watching their TV series on their whatever shit they watch on Netflix, and they don't really want to do much outside of that. And hey, that's okay. That's fine. It's not for everybody. But if you're going to be someone who says, no, I want that, then you got to know that's what you got to do. So you got to do it.
This might be kind of rhetorical, but maybe not. As one of the best in the world, and you are, why would a person, it's like a person would come to my clinic and they would argue with me on how many bones are in the spine. You don't need me. Why would they come to you and you're telling them this is what you have to do, but they try to negotiate? What? Well, and
again, I think this is something we owe largely to the internet and to social media. There's all these experts out there, and unfortunately, a lot of times once you see these experts, you're severely let down because it's just some guy or some kid sitting behind a computer. But these are the people that are telling other people, no, it's not the training. It's really about the drugs.
Hey, Evan, do you get kids? I don't know if kids are dumb enough to approach someone like you. Well, they probably are. I ran my nutrition clinic. Now people, they don't ask about training or food or, desiccated liver pills. The first thing they ask about is the pill or a drug or what does this do? And they're taking themselves out of the equation as the doer, and they're looking for something to do it for them in the form of a synthetic. I mean, do you get that a lot?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's bad for a number of reasons. Number one, obviously, it's an unhealthy way to approach it. Number two, I think it's really not very empowering. You're stripping a lot of power away from yourself because rather than saying, well, no, my success lies within my ability to train hard and to eat well, what you're saying is my success depends on a pill. And obviously, anabolic steroids are a part of bodybuilding and a part of professional athletics, but there has to be the focus has to primarily be on training and nutrition, and you're using drugs to supplement, to augment, to facilitate the process. And this is another thing. I see comments on social media. You get a lot of kids and they're like, fuck the supplement industry. They're lying to us. They're telling us that, these pro bodybuilders, they talk about what supplements they take, but they don't talk about the drugs they take. So, they're just trying to scam us and this, that, and the other thing. Now, first of all, as a pro bodybuilder or as anybody, okay, Nobody has any fucking obligation to you to discuss something that's technically a very personal matter. Okay, no one owes you that.
I get it, and I suck, but they'll ask me, and I'll say, I'll come back and say, "Are you a closet alcoholic?" I'll come right back with, what the hell kind of question is that?
Yeah. What do you like? What are your sexual preferences? I mean, it's none of your fucking business. If you're face to face with someone and this person isn't a jerk off and they have a sincere question, I'd probably be very inclined to answer their question about steroids or whatever it is. But, these people throw these questions out publicly and they're frankly very obnoxious about it. But getting back to the point, when I remember being younger, right? Maybe 14, 15, 16 years old, and you're looking at the cover of Flex magazine and you're seeing Nasser on the cover or, and you're looking at this guy.
And then
you're looking at this guy and you're saying, holy shit. And you don't know enough yet. And you say, I wonder if I could look like that. And to take it a step further, you say, I wonder if I have to take anything to look like that, or can I do that naturally? So you don't know the answer. Okay. You're ignorant in that regard, but that's not a bad thing. Okay. That is not a bad thing, because at 16 years old, what that did for me was the fact that I believed maybe that I could attain that. All it made me do was focus on my training and nutrition, because I didn't have that third element. Okay. That was not a bad thing. Now you've got these kids and they've got these asshole jerk offs on social media telling them, oh, you're not going to get anywhere without steroids. So you got these kids and they're 15, they're 16 years old using drugs, and they think that's their only way to accomplish something. It's a total fucking loser. So guys weren't discussing it when I was coming up. And guess what? That's okay.
Yeah.
It only helped me, because when I was old enough and advanced enough, guess what? It was there and I figured it out and I learned about it and I did what I had to do. But I didn't need to know about it at 15 or 16. And had I, it probably would have been to my detriment.
I always say to all you guys that come on here and to our admiration and respect, I'm glad you exist, because it proves that it can be done. And the synthetics might be one little component somewhere along the line, but there's so many other things. Just the fact that you exist proves that it can be done. And Blue still says that he would, where is he here? He'd still love to take a picture with you. I'm trying to find you. He'd still take a picture with you at a show. It's a great motivation. That's true. Social media athlete. Here's a good question for you, Evan. From my member Ken.
The problem when he says that social media athletes are speaking the truth. See, a lot of people have come out and then they're saying what is the truth. Okay. Now, if it's a professional bodybuilder, someone who's been there, someone who's a seasoned veteran, they know the truth. Well, they know their own personal truth. First of all, as a pro, right? When I get together and I'm around Branch Warren or Dennis Wolf or any of these other guys, we don't sit there and talk about what each of us is taking. Okay. I don't know what those guys use. Okay. I don't know what they use. They don't know what I use. So if anyone, first of all, is going to talk about the truth, they can only speak for themselves. They don't know what everybody's using. Number two, what's a joke is that a lot of times these guys who claim to be telling the truth don't know shit. It's just some kid. Okay. So he thinks he's the purveyor of truth. And in the reality, he knows fuck all.
Yes. Do people overtrain? Is 35 to 40 minutes really good enough? Tell him your Yates story there, Evan. What Yates told you in England. Remember that guy digging?
What did he say? What the analogy he gave me?
Training 2 hours versus training 30 minutes. A guy digging all day.
He gave an interesting analogy, and it made a lot of sense. And he said, look at people who do different types of work or labor. So say, for example, if you're someone who does manual labor, right? Maybe a landscaper, you use your muscles all day. It's kind of like a day, like a 8-10 hour workout. but you don't get big from that because it's just constant, steady work. There's no overload. There's no failure. There's no adaptation. In order to create a response, whether it's, get bigger, get stronger, it has to be a very intense, acute stimulus, because just doing something at a moderate pace where it doesn't create a feeling in your body of, holy shit, that hurts, I'm going to drop this fucking weight, that's overload. That is the feeling that creates progress. Just like when I couldn't run, when I first started out and I couldn't run a mile, right? I run a half a mile and my lungs hurt like hell. That is necessary. That pain that I feel in my lungs today is what's going to enable me to run further tomorrow. So, but if you don't push to that point, you get nowhere. Comfort, just going along at a steady pace. Look at a workout, okay? If a workout is comprised of, let's just say 20 sets, okay? And each set is comprised of, I'm just going to say 10 reps, right? So 20 times 10 is 200. So during the course of that workout, you do 200 reps, and maybe it takes place within the course of 45 minutes to an hour. What if you were to take that workout and space it out over 5 hours? You're still doing the same number of reps, right? Same number of sets, same amount of weight. You know what it has? It has fucking zero meaning, because all you did was you just took it and you watered it down. It's like a punch, right? If I hit somebody, and let's just say, I don't know, say there's 500 pounds of force, right? Well, if you took 1 pound of force and you hit somebody 500 times, would it have any effect? No, it has an effect because you hit someone with 500 pounds of force at once. It has impact. The longer you stretch something out and the more you water it down, it just loses all meaning.
You talked about adaptation in a discussion I had with you, and you said, let's say you're squatting, which is very hard. It's a hard exercise, and you're going, balls to the wall like flats. And as you're laying there afterward, what you should be thinking about is something even harder. Always seek the hardest things to do. But people don't do that. They do what they like instead of what is hardest. Is that correct?
When you're under the bar, when that bar is on your back, and you say, okay, I just completed 10 reps in a row. I can't do an 11th consecutively because I won't come back up, right? A lot of people, if they even get that far, they'll rack the bar. The key is you get to 10 reps and you pause and you say, okay, if I give myself 5 seconds, can I get 3, 4, 5 more reps consecutively? Let me fucking try it. So you do. Then you say, okay, I'm going to squeak them out now, 1 rep at a time, until I know that if I go down for 1 more rep, I'm not coming back up, right? That is what creates progress. Because now, instead of doing 10 reps and stopping, you just did 10, maybe plus 3 or 4, plus another 1 or 2, all right? So you just did 50% more than that guy who just stopped. And you've got this feeling, in your legs, not only in your legs, but in your whole body of, I'm going to crumble. That's progress. You could do 5, 6, 7 sets like that guy just did. And again, it wouldn't be as impactful as what you just did in that 1 set. It's just totally different.
The question is
to answer that guy's
minute?
question, is 30 or 45 minutes enough? If you train like an absolute demon, yeah, it could be.
That's a good point.
The question is overtraining real? Hell yeah, it's real. Look, when most of us keep a workout to an hour, maybe an hour and a half. If you're some total rock star, maybe you train for 2 hours. Why not work out for 8 hours? If you could work out for 8 hours and you could recover from it, you'd be a lot bigger and stronger than the guy who worked out for 2 hours, but you can't. Recovery is ultimately a limiting factor. And you get to a point where it doesn't matter how much food you eat or how much drugs you take or how much sleep you get. Things are just going to happen at a certain rate. It's like a plant, right? Like I grow plants from my garden. There's only so much sunlight I could give it. There's only so much water I can give it. And there's only so much food I can give it. The plant is only going to grow at a certain rate. Otherwise, I'm just going to drown or otherwise kill the thing.
Evan, is that every working out like that? That balls to the wall? Is that every workout, going that hard where you can't get up? Would recovery be an issue?
I mean, each set has to be taken to a reasonable extent, because otherwise, how do you determine where to stop the set? If you stop at 10 reps, but you could have done 3 more, what I'm saying is, how do you know when to stop a set other than I couldn't do another one?
Yeah, that's a good point. Which exercise do you think is one of the worst, but most people are still doing it?
Just not a good exercise?
Yeah, and people are still doing it.
I don't know. I don't know if there's such thing maybe as a bad exercise as there is bad execution. Like, I don't know. I'm not a big believer in maybe something like a leg press where, you could always just bring more hips or more glutes into it, or it's really easy to use the wrong things or just use more tendon strength. But I guess you could do that with a lot of exercises. I don't know. Probably some stupid isolation machine movement.
Evan, when you go to other countries, is the training different? Is the eating different? Is it a whole different style in some cases?
I don't know. I mean, the English stand out to me. The British, they train pretty fucking hard. They've still got that really gritty mentality. They go in there to fuck shit up. They're no nonsense. Otherwise, I don't know. Eastern European, like you go to Poland and stuff, they're working out hard. They've got a good mentality.
When you travel, what do you do about your food? I mean, because sometimes you don't have access.
If I'm traveling domestically, I'll prepare everything in advance, at least all the protein, and I'll vacuum seal it, freeze it, put it in a cooler, put it in my checked bag, and just bring it with me. And when I get to the hotel, just put it in a refrigerator. So at least I have my protein, and it's always easy to order room service or, get things like a baked potato, or you could go to the grocery store and get sleeves of rice cake. So, or bags of nuts, or you could bring those with you too. So at least if I have my protein prepared, because that's the most difficult thing to get enough of when you're training, or when you're traveling, or if you do get enough of it, you're probably going to go broke. So if I'm traveling domestically, I usually pretty much bring all my food. If I'm traveling internationally, a lot of times you're not supposed to bring food through customs, into other countries. Right. I've done it before when I'm competing because I said, well, fuck it, I'll just take the risk. But a lot of times if I'm traveling, I'll just try to make preparations in advance, or once I get somewhere, either if I could speak to someone at the hotel, if there's a restaurant there, or find a local restaurant and just try to have them prep all my stuff. I say, listen, I'm going to be here for the next 5 days. Each morning, could you have X, Y, and Z prepared? I'll pick it up, I'll pay you, and I'll go on my way.
You got to go out of your way a little bit to get it done. How is Evan handling cardio now? Treadmill, with Evan being a big bodybuilder, does jogging or running put too much pressure on his knee, especially with that injury you had?
Yeah. Running or jogging is pretty much out of the question, but if I'm at home, I'll use a treadmill, on a steep incline. And if I'm at the gym, I'll use the step mill. I find those to be really adequate. Plus, I try to have my training do the most of the work. People tend to look at training like, okay, I need to get in shape. I'm going to train to support my muscle, but then I'm going to do cardio to burn fat. Hard training can be your biggest ally when it comes to getting in shape. I mean, cardio should really just be kind of like an addition. It shouldn't be where the majority of your fat burning takes place. You should really be breaking your ass with your training. And then you shouldn't really have much of a need for too much cardio.
I see it, and I see a lot of people make comments on the fact that you stay extraordinarily lean all the time. You could always show abs. It doesn't seem like you deviate maybe more than 20 pounds from contest weight. Is that true?
Yeah, 20 or 30 pounds usually, which I guess maybe for a guy, maybe a larger guy isn't too much. As I got older, I just didn't get as fat anymore. I think it was, from eating a certain way consistently and then, training a certain way consistently. I don't know. I think almost maybe in a way I reprogrammed myself a little bit. But I think if you get in a habit, plus too, look, the more muscle you carry, it becomes more difficult to get fat because just sitting around, your body consumes calories. So a lot of people, I think, miss the boat on that too. It's like they're always finding themselves trying to get in shape, and it's like, well, you might be best served if you put on a little bit of muscle first.
Dr. Aaron Witten, what's your opinion of the future of the classic physique division, not board shorts, classic physique? Thank you for this interview. Yeah. Thanks, Aaron. Aaron got interviewed on here. He's on my advisory board. Real smart guy. But what do you think of that?
I think classic physique is probably the future. Bodybuilding, I don't know. I hope it'll always be there. But I think classic physique is probably a lot more appealing to a lot of guys because just all that size and what you've got to do to get there. I don't think a lot of guys want to do it, and it's very possible that a lot of guys can't do it. So, and plus classic physique just carries a really good look. I think it's a great class. I mean, me personally, when I go to a show, I want to watch bodybuilding because for me, I'm just most impressed by it. But classic physique is super impressive. Men's physique, I don't want to watch. But classic physique, yeah, I mean, the guys are outstanding and they're in incredible condition. So it's an exciting class.
Forgive me, but what's the difference between men's physique and classic physique?
Well, men's physique is where guys wear the board shorts.
Oh, okay, board shorts, yeah.
And then classic physique is, more along the lines of bodybuilding, but with weight restrictions.
Right. That's what this is on our golf pro Tony Corby. That's what I teach my junior golfers to do: practice hard with perfect technique. I love how Evan swears. It says "go fuck shit up." Oh, I didn't know I was going to be reading that. Evan, I had to cut down on my swearing because YouTube will kick you off if you swear too much. So these guys got me. We're fine, but I probably was over the top of one bit. Bodybuilding is all that matters. Joey Fulco was on the show. His daughter was just on The Voice. Really good musical family. He won the Teenage Mr. USA before you were born. That's all I'll say. But he says high intensity is so important.
Listen, intensity is important in everything, even when you're learning, right? I mean, I think back to when I was in high school and you're trying to learn something, right? Sometimes you learn to an extent you're like, my freaking head hurts. That's intensity to a degree, right? But it's what it takes to get something in your head, to learn something new. So in no matter what discipline you are, whether it's bodybuilding, whether it's, any other sport, there has to be a degree of intensity.
Yes. Yeah. Well, let me ask you this. How do you define intensity? I say doing as much work as possible in the shortest time possible, not in a sloppy way, but
I think it's a supreme focus on something. And if the goal is learning, then, where you might be tempted to get up and walk around and take a break, you just keep sitting there and trying to drill something into your brain. Even though your body's telling you, just give me a fucking break, get up and walk around, whatever. Because the same thing in training, you're in the middle of a set and the body's telling you, stop doing this to me, give me a break. And you're saying, no, you're going to keep going. That's intensity.
Speaking of intensity, I have your good friend on here Thursday, John Meadows. Is it true that you guys really have vomit buckets for your leg workouts?
Well, I went out and visited John at a gym out there, Elite FTS, which is Dave Tate's gym. And there's a puke bucket.
Is that the goal, or it just happens to happen? I mean, obviously you're not.
No. And I don't. I rarely throw up. And I usually train with a good amount of intensity. It was, just a different style workout, and those guys got me. I was a little bit embarrassed, to be honest. I felt like a rookie.
Where the nickname the Ox come from? We're winding down here. We got some questions towards the end. Who gave you that moniker?
When I was younger, just being a really big kid, my uncle just jokingly used to be like, "Isn't he just a big ox?" So.
Okay, so that wasn't like from Joe Weeder. Did you meet Joe Weeder before he passed away?
Never met Joe.
No, I always wanted to meet him. Just, I don't know, for posterity's sake. Just one more thing. I was watching one of your videos, and you were talking about people make the mistake of avoiding foods such as bone marrow, liver, things like that. What's the value there?
Well, if you look at something like lean tissue, muscle tissue, say a chicken breast, valuable, no doubt. I would encourage people to look at things this way, right? You eat a chicken breast or any lean tissue, right? That is the animal's muscle tissue. It's no coincidence that we do that in correspondence with helping to heal and grow our own muscle tissue, right? Nothing better for your muscle tissue than consuming muscle tissue, right? But people tend to stop there and they say, well, you want to support your liver? What better to support your liver than to eat some liver? Yeah. Not only is it good for your liver, but also, it's packed. It's basically like a freaking multivitamin. It's loaded.
Kind of like
if you look at the nutritional,
kind of like the desiccated liver pills we used to pop. There was some sanity behind that.
Oh yeah. No, that was for real. I don't really care for the taste of beef liver, but I'll eat chicken liver. But I do it a few times a week just because I like it. To be honest, I love it. But it is loaded, man, with vitamins and minerals. Eating, say, chicken hearts, I would imagine it contains stuff that's good for your heart. Just like eating muscle tissue contains stuff that's good for your muscle. I think it really is that simple.
And you also, in your food prep, you don't follow that mantra that some people follow, which is say no to taste. So in other words, you cook your food to taste. You enjoy eating, obviously. Try to make it, even though.
Yeah, listen, I eat very bland. Okay, if I cook chicken breast, I don't even put anything on it. I just put it on the grill plain. However, in doing that, see, you can go one of two ways. You can buy a really cheap Frankenstein massive chicken breasts that's fucking gross and the texture is disgusting. And you can
tampered with.
Dump a bunch of seasoning all over it. Or you can just get really good tasting chicken with a good texture and actually eat it and just shut up and enjoy the taste of chicken. See, I don't want to eat chicken and make it taste like something else. If I'm eating chicken, I want to taste chicken. But in order to do that, it's got to be good chicken.
Yeah. That's a great point. You and I were talking about that in the gym, how you've got these, like you said, these, how can a chicken breast be this big? They're doing something to it. But you go to a local farm market, you go to a Marcus or Mark's farm market or something, and, you get the regular size, but it's, cage free, prepared, as naturally as possible, and it tastes like chicken. It's not that rubber.
When people say, what do you do to your food? What do you season with? I don't like all the seasonings because it's all a bunch of shit. A lot of times I'll get indigestion from it, so I prefer to eat it plain. So rather than try to disguise your food, why don't you just seek out quality food that you can actually enjoy the taste of it without try to beating it into something else?
Right. Evan is really great for the sport. I love how candid and real he is. I told you, Joey, just like Jack LaLanne, man. Why would you want to? Listen, it's like I have an example I use. I tell Denise, and I will swear, I don't mind dealing with assholes. She goes, "What do you mean?" I says, "Well, as long as they're consistently assholes, I know what to deal with. I know what's coming." And that's not you. I'm saying, I agree with you though. Yeah, you're a known reagent. We know what we're going to get. It's consistency, and people need that because there's so much chicanery and fraud and bullshit. What is real now? I'm halting to even know this. Let's do our 5 questions here. If anybody has questions, shoot them out now because we're almost done here. I know Evan has children and responsibilities. Doesn't want to talk to my rickety ass all night. You know, and this guy in this room, what the hell is he doing? Well, let's just go here. Are there any athletes on social media that you suggest you follow to get good advice and motivate?
I would say my buddy Chris Tuttle is a wealth of information and a great dude. John Meadows for sure.
Great.
Who else? Dr. Jordan Shallow, very smart guy.
Guy with the beard.
Yes.
Big guy. Yeah, I like him.
Big dude. John Jewett, also incredibly bright. Who else? I don't know. I'm sure there's so many people I'm forgetting. And to be honest, I really don't follow a ton, but those right off the top of my head would be my recommendation.
Lou, I'll tell you, you know what you do? Find 1 or 2 and stick to them consistently because there's many ways to do things. You know, there's different routes to the same outcome. You got to choose one. If you keep jumping around with different suggestions, you're never going to get anywhere. 5 questions. Number 1, Evan. Who would be the most likely today to take down Ronnie Coleman? Ronnie Coleman at his best. Who's the most likely to even come close? Because, you know, really,
I mean, I think Phil is so much better than people give him credit for. And I think next to Ronnie, he would do a lot better than people think. But beating Ronnie would be a really, really, really tall order. And I don't know, man.
Be hard, huh?
Ronnie was really from another freaking planet.
How about Kai Green at his absolute best? Maybe not. Just not big enough.
I don't know. Ronnie just had a certain stature. And Kai is wicked impressive. No doubt about it. I think the closest you would come to beating him is Phil. And even then, I don't know that it would be enough.
Evan, I have to mention, because I consider you a friend, and this is not a bad thing. But looking at Ronnie now, and it's, you know, listen, all respect, you know, very smart guy too, but, you know, he's wrecked, you know, I won't say he's wrecked himself, he's wrecked, you know, his body is just destroyed. You don't want to end up like that. What do you do to ensure that you're healthy throughout the year?
Well, I guess maybe I'm blessed.
Do you think Ronnie trained too hard?
I don't even know if it was that. I mean, listen, Ronnie trained like a fucking demon, all right? But it seemed like with Ronnie, it kind of started. It was almost like a domino effect. He had like one surgery and it didn't go well. And then it just was like this cascade of like surgeries to correct surgeries, maybe surgeries that weren't necessary. So had Ronnie just stopped, and I don't know. I don't know the answer, to be honest. You know, I don't want to sit here and say, well, Ronnie just wrecked his body, because that's probably what most people think. And I don't even know if that's necessarily true.
Maybe it just occurred. That's how his body responded to training.
Well, look, having had a serious injury myself, which I'm sure is nothing compared to what Ronnie had, I could see how things look. It's freaking 3 years past, and my knee still hurts. Okay, and it still doesn't look like the other knee. It's still swollen a little bit. I'm sure if I went back to the doctor, he would come up with another surgery to give me. Right.
Oh, yeah.
I have a lot of aches and pains, for which I'm sure there's all surgeries. But knowing what I know about surgery, you don't want to do it unless you absolutely have to.
Surgery is another injury that you have to overcome, you know, and yes. You're right. And I told patients for many years, unless it's absolutely necessary, don't have it done. It's as simple as that. There's other ways.
The injury has to be really, really bad to warrant surgery. So for Ronnie, maybe it was unnecessary surgeries, maybe it was bad surgeries, and then that just having a cascade effect. I don't know. Or maybe he did. Maybe he did train himself, you know, into oblivion. I don't know.
Hey, listen, he's still alive, still viable tissue. I believe he can get back. Not competing or anything, but you can get around. It takes a lot of strategy, a lot of time. Evan, how long does it take you to get really lean before a big show? Because I see you are very lean anyhow. So in other words, when you start training for a show, how much more lean you have to get?
16 weeks for me is a good amount of time to get as lean as I need to get, but also do it in a way that I can keep as much muscle as possible.
Yeah, it is bodybuilding. Your opinion on IIFM shortly, if it fits your macro.
Right. There's certainly a degree of validity to it, of course. I think that some people have, plenty of success with it. I don't know.
Really, what I'm saying, Evan, is their premise in some cases is a 200 calorie protein chicken breast is equivalent to a 200 calorie Pop-Tart because it's 200 calories. And they don't regard.
Well, no, because that's just taking into account calories because obviously the macros of a chicken breast and a Pop-Tart aren't the same. But I do still think that there are better quality foods. Some people are going to argue and say, no, on a chemical basis, it's all the same. Chemically speaking, I guess we're all the same. So Why don't you just pick out your next wife? She could just be any old person because chemically we're all the same. Maybe that's a bad example.
Yeah, I was going to say next wife. Just do one wife. Don't go any further than that.
I just think that there's certainly such thing as foods that digest better than others. I still think that a food that is natural and unprocessed is going to be a better option than a fucking Pop-Tart, macros notwithstanding. I don't know. I could be totally wrong. Maybe that's the way, but it's just not the way I would choose to do it. And I do believe in quality food, unprocessed food, not a bunch of chemical shit. Because look, the reality is people can say, well, if it fits your macros, so diet soda doesn't have any macros. I can drink it all day. I don't even need to drink water. But I mean, I think that would probably be a pretty bad idea.
You told me not to do this, but I have one or two a day.
Because there's other things to take into account, right? Besides macros, there's micronutrients. You're drinking diet soda, right? It's been proven that there's the artificial sweeteners have an effect on gut bacteria in a way that could actually lead to the synthesis of fats. So look, no one's going to tell me that some food out of a, bag or box or whatever the fuck is better than just fresh, unprocessed natural food. It's just, there's no way. But if you have success with it, if it fits your macros, all the power to you.
If you're not doing any, Frank Zane was doing something and somebody called him out and he said, look, despite what the scientists and the textbooks say, if I'm not doing any damage myself and I'm getting results, I'm going to keep doing it because everybody, and that's a good point right there. I asked you this once in the gym and you had a good response. You got a little pithy, understandably. Number 3, pre-workout drink or just use your brain to get your ass moving.
Look,
especially the kids, they got to have all these pre-workouts. You're a kid. You're supposed to be like Carl Lewis, man, running hard, going hard all day.
What people don't understand is that pre-workout is a relatively new thing, right? I mean, really, it was Ultimate Orange in the late 90s that kind of started it all. I think personally, if you need a pre-workout, right, before every workout, either something is wrong that you need to address. Maybe you're not getting enough sleep. Maybe your diet is crap, or maybe you're just being a pussy. Because the reality is every time you walk into the gym, you're not going to be on fire, ready to fucking smash everything and hyped up. It doesn't work like that. Sometimes you walk in the gym and you're dragging ass. That's okay. you pick yourself up and you get going. And once you get going, you might just have the workout of your life.
Yes.
This idea that you need a pre-workout, I'm sorry, I think it's fucking lame. It's not something I would sell somebody, hey, once or twice a week, maybe you want to pick me up, whatever it is. Okay, fine. But if you need to do it before every workout, either you got something wrong or you're just being a pussy. So I'm not really on board with it. I don't use them personally. I don't think it's wrong to use them, but I think it's wrong to not be able to not use them.
Right. Blue, I just want to say thanks for me being located in Asia. I don't attend expos, so this is the next best thing to meet Evan. Thanks, Dr. Deuce and Mr. Centopani, for this. All glory and thanks goes to Evan because he's giving us his time, and it's very valuable. It took him a lifetime to accrue all this information, and information is the most powerful. You've got to implement, though, folks. Number 4, what is the secret to huge triceps, since you have the biggest triceps in history?
I think it's just, honestly, everybody has, more out. Everybody has one outstanding body part. If you're Ronnie Coleman or you're Phil Heath, you have a bunch of outstanding body parts. Yeah. But for me, triceps were always just a good one. And yeah, I trained them well and whatever, but I have to be honest, I don't even think I can take full credit. I think they're just good. Yeah, they're just there.
And you told me something about dairy once. Why do you not consume dairy? For the most part, I don't think you do, right?
I don't. I haven't had it since 2009. I just don't feel good when I have it. I think if you can have most people, I think, don't do well with it, but they just don't realize they don't do well with it. I think probably everyone who consumes it would at least feel better without it, but everyone just tolerates it in varying degrees. Some people tolerate it extremely well, and some people don't tolerate it well at all. But look, I grew up on milk. I love milk. If I could tolerate it, I would probably still have it, but I just feel like shit when I consume it. It's not a lactose thing. I could take lactate pills. I could use the finest quality whey isolate. It's not about that. I think it's the proteins in it. I just don't feel good when I consume it, so I don't consume it. I think a lot of people would feel better without it, but I don't want to tell people not to consume it because maybe you do really well with it and you grow like hell from it and you do good with it. So if that's the case, keep having it.
Subscribe to Evan Centopani on YouTube and Evan's World on YouTube. Any other contact points or anything to direct people?
You can follow me on Instagram. That's probably where I'm most active. It's just at Evan Centopani, my name, and that's about it.
And everyone, check out the Animal Meal. I use it. It's very good.
I would say follow Animal Pack on YouTube because they put out content of me regularly.
It's Animal Pack, right? Is that a subdivision of Universal? Is that what that is? That's part of Universal, right?
Well, Animal Pack was and still is a Universal product, but then Animal kind of became its own kind of a hardcore line under the Universal brand.
Right, and you did all those excellent pictures with Brian Moss, those iconic black and white. I remember you told me one day I want to get pictures done, and you said, Mike, you should go to him, man. You're old school. I still wear clothes from the 80s. So.
Brian's done some of the greatest stuff ever.
Yeah, he really is a good guy to have. And you're a good guy, and I just want to thank you. I'm happy that you exist because you're very well-centered. You're different than others. And not to say others are not good, but you're going to go beyond this, I think, and think very deeply. You help a lot of people. I read the stuff people write. I don't ever see anything bad about you. Got a little bit of a reverb. So I'm happy you're out there. We still have guys like you.
Oh, I appreciate it.
People want to say America's #1, and I believe that currently, but I don't run into too many people making it that way. So I thank you. Because,
thanks, Mike.
Well, you're one of the guys. You won the nationals. So technically, you're Mr. America, even though it's not called that anymore. it's gotta be kind of cool. Isn't that cool thinking of that sometimes? Like you're laying there like, oh man, I was Mr. America.
It is pretty freaking cool. It's too bad I wasn't able to be given that title, but yeah, it was cool that's what it was. Yeah.
Oh, so anyhow, thanks, Michael and Evan. Everybody's thanking us now. I hope you two can help me get in shape. I love this show. Thank you, Tony. It's all about longevity. I love all the people here. Everybody's really good and nice, and they give very nice questions, and we don't get any BS. And it's all about strengthening your sphere of influence, because the stronger the people are around you, the stronger you are, and that's why I like being around people like Evan. And Evan, I want to thank you. Any closing thoughts?
That's it. I just want to say thanks for having me. Thanks everybody for watching, and just all the best, everybody, and best of luck.
Ev, I'll see. So we're going to see you in the show when they hold it, right? When they have the.
Yep.
And you won that. You want to regain. You want to take it back for a while. Well,
would certainly be cool to win it again.
Before we go, I just want to say one thing that somebody just said. Evan should be Mr. O. Do you think if you really put everything in, all your focus into winning Mr. Olympia, do you think you can be viable for that title?
So hard to say. I guess, if I ate, breathed, and slept it, I could probably be significantly better than I am now. That's safe to say. Would it be enough to win an Olympia? I really don't know.
Not really in your hands. You can only do what you can do.
I don't really think about it.
No. Thanks, everybody. I want to thank you again. Evan, I'm going to see you at the gym, obviously. And I'll shoot you a note. Okay, we're going to close out now. We've got John Meadows on Thursday. Evan, we've got Gino Cacavalli. And next week, we've got Earl Maynard from the Beach. He was in the first Mr. Olympia. We got Roy Calendar, who won Olympia. So always gold. And they're still doing well. But Evan, thanks everyone. Good night. And Evan,
thanks, Mike.
Thanks again, man.
Okay, sounds good.
All right.
I'll see you guys.
All right, good night, everybody. Fantastic.